Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Motherhood Club talk show. After a very long time, we are speaking to a mother to talk about her journey as a mother. What do I say about this mother? A doctor, a poet, someone who loves handloom, has been helping the weavers, loves hand curated jewelry, has been supporting them also, and a lot more is what our guest for today is, and that is Dr. Payal Talreja. Sorry. So, Payal is someone who is a poet, like I said. She's a writer, she's a feminist, a mother of two beautiful girls, one married, one still studying. She is a mother who herself is liberated and believes in liberating her kids. And not because they are girls and she's a feminist, but she believes that in order to discipline a child, in order to teach something to a child, make them understand, let them understand what is right and what is not right for them, let them experience. She's also someone who I would say not only would take care of her girls, but would take care of many who are in need. She helped many during the time of COVID in Delhi as well as in the hills where they have their house. A warm welcome, Pyle, at the Motherhood Club talk show, and a long pending conversation. Finally, you're here. How do you feel?
Thank you so much, Ekta. It's really, really lovely to be here chatting with you. And I am sure my daughters would have a lot of criticisms about that very kind and generous introduction.
Well, I guess being a daughter, I understand, and being a mother also. So we all have reached a point where we are on either of the sides, and we have our own side also. But let me tell you one thing that someone who guided me through my pregnancy was there all along through my difficult pregnancy. I'm sure knows how to groom, how to mentor, and how to actually help women know themselves. So, Payal, I have introduced you in my own words of what I know of you over the last, I think, 7 years now, if I remember it right.
Yes,
2012, perhaps we met
yes.
because of a common love, which is sarees. So let me request you to introduce yourself a little more in detail so that our viewers know Payal Talreja or Dr. Payal Talreja and what is the difference between the two.
So, Ekta, I think the first thing I'm going to remind you is that when we met, I told you that, Ekta, you and I are just like each other. And I think strong women recognize each other and appreciate each other and add to each other in many ways. Um, you can't take away being a woman from anything that you do in life, whether it is being a doctor or being in any other profession. Essentially, that your gender uh, in many ways completely affects whatever you do. And I am 55. I grew up in a world that was very gender conscious. I grew up in a world that was very limiting in many ways for women. And for me, it's been a very long journey to get here. Uh, there is really not much difference between me as a professional or me as a woman. Uh, but perhaps there are a lot of differences between me as a professional, as a friend, and as a mother. Motherhood is one of the very, very big changes in life.
Absolutely. And I think that's what changed Dr. Payal Talreja to being Payal Talreja.
Absolutely. So, unfortunately, I had to leave my practice very soon because of not just a very difficult pregnancy, but also with, because there just was no infrastructure or support, and I didn't feel able to uh, go out and see to other children, look after other children when my own children had no help and no support at home. uh, Nobody asked me to stop practicing. In fact, my partner and I tried our very hardest to enable this as much as we could. But it's just the reality of life. You know, you're living in a big city. You Even if you hire somebody to look after your children, there's still imminent dangers. And I am talking now about quite a while ago. My elder daughter is 27. My younger one is 23. Life was very different. Things were difficult for you if you did not have the support system. uh, Most of us, even today, I find, like, I have a friend who's a granny, and she says that from that auspicious time when marriages happen in India, 9 months from that time, she has a spate of deliveries, which means that obviously, even today, people have a baby the moment they get married without even thinking about it. We thought we were very smart. We planned it. I got married 3.5 years after my marriage. I had my first baby. I had my second one almost 5 years after that. I thought everything was beautifully planned and laid out. But they say the best laid plans of mice and men. So most of us fall into parenthood. We fall into this status of suddenly becoming a mother without thinking about it, and it both terrifies me and amuses me. This is such a big life change. How do you just let it happen?
I guess that's what God made us, prima facie, that okay, bring someone, nurture them, and perhaps either make them better or at least at par with us. I think that's the moral responsibility that each mother has. You know, every time I look at Vanya, I see that perhaps she's a better version, of what I could do and or what I didn't do. So,
Yeah,
many a times, a lot of us, I think, live through our dreams, through our kids. But I think times are changing now. As parents, as a young parent, and I love to call myself a young parent, though I'm on the other side of the age. You live your dream through them, but in the process of that, it's not about imposing something on them. It's about learning. And since I host kids, so sorry, I realized that when you talk to kids and when you understand the perspective that they bring in, I think they mentor us a lot better than we adults can do that, because they have no baggage. We come with so much of legacy, so much of baggage, so much of the way we have been brought up. I think a lot of unlearning needs to be done, and I realize this over, I think, days, sometimes minute by minute. I realize that there is so much to unlearn, than
completely
to learn
agree.
actually.
Completely agree. One of the biggest regrets of my life is the way that I parented my kids at when they were very young, especially the elder one, who got the main brunt of a person who didn't have a parenting manual and just did whatever she had learned to do. So when we were kids, we were smacked, we were slapped quite a lot. In fact, that was the only way of discipline. Before even words, there was this glare, a look that was given to you, which was supposed to freeze you into place. Sometimes it worked, but with me, sometimes it didn't work because I was always a very rebellious child. From being a very shy, very gentle, soft, poetic little girl, I grew into this horrible monster who wanted to rebel about everything, right? So for some time that gaze worked, and after some time that gaze stopped working. So when the gaze stopped working, then the next thing was this. And when that also stopped working, then the next thing was, I remember I've even been using village Haru. But it's it was a very poor model of parenting. And I think it was quite heinous. And unfortunately for me, that was the model that I adopted in my early years as a parent. And it's one of my biggest regrets. Today, at 55, with grown up daughters, if there is one thing that I have done wrong as a mom, it's hitting them. So
Is
I
hitting them.
would say, yeah, I would say never do that. Hitting a child simply means that you have lost control, that you have lost your temper. It is not disciplining in any way. It is it is shaming. It destroys the relationship that you build up with your child, and it is a negation of the love that should be there between parents and children. So this has been my one big regret, and I say this to all parents, all new parents: never raise your hand. If possible, never even raise your voice. वो क्या है ना, इट्स अ वेरी बड़ी अजीब चीज है. पेरेंट्स हमको सब कुछ सिखाते हैं, कितनी चीजों के साथ इक्विप करते हैं, राइट? बट दे नेवर टीच अस व्हाट आर यू गोइंग टू डू विद योर नेगेटिव इमोशंस. एंगर है तो एंगर के साथ क्या करना चाहिए? भाई बड़ी सिंपल सी
Absolutely.
बात है. कैन यू नॉट टीच योर चाइल्ड टू से आई एम वेरी एंग्री, आई एम अपसेट विद यू, आई डोंट लाइक एक्स वाई जी? नहीं सिखाते हम. We don't teach them how to deal with anger. We don't teach them how to deal with depression. We don't teach them how to deal with failure. We don't teach them how to do anything with the negative emotions that come in your life. And life is not smooth. वो negatives तो आएगा ही आएगा. उसकी वजह जिंदगी
Absolutely.
क्या है? You know, none of us can guarantee a perfectly smooth road, a perfect happiness for our children. So why don't we even think about equipping them? So actually, this is quite amusing. uh, by the time my elder one was about about 11, 12, the younger one was about 5, 6, I actually started doing parenting workshops in schools with two topics. One was talking about discipline, and the second one was talking about sex.
Okay.
And this was for parents of little children.
So what were the reaction from your daughters that you were talking about disciplining? And so, many times it happens that we say something, but actually what we do is very different. And I think that's
Yes.
applicable to each one of us. And uh, I think every parent is guilty of giving one or two here and there, whether it is the current generation parent or the older ones. Perhaps it was a lot more earlier, as you said, and there would be brooms and there would be balloons and chappals that would fly from every direction. But
Parents क्या, even teachers when we were growing up, वो टीचर उठा के डस्टर फेंक देती थी.
duster, yes, I agree.
चौक
You
फेंक
hit you
के
on your
चौक से
knuckles.
पैक मारती थी.
Absolutely. Scale and hitting. I remember I was in school and a teacher hit me with a scale. I caught hold of the scale and I said, I'm sorry, you can't hit me, it's against the rule. So and I think we had moved from Mumbai to Agra, so that transition from a metro to a small place. And she told me immediately, go call your father. And my father came and he obviously supported me that she's absolutely right. So the teacher didn't know where to look because it's wrong. But like I said, that each of us, every parent is guilty. So it's the moment that the flying saucer comes your way. But yes, I quite agree with you. And as I said, there is a lot of unlearning that each one of us does. And what you have brought out is absolutely right. We are not prepared for any of these negative emotions. Failure for sure. And perhaps that is one of the reasons why we see so many young kids in class 11, 12 committing suicide. I think more than the failure of the child, it is the failure of the parent, whether we want to accept it or not. But that's perhaps, I think that's the hard hitting truth. And being a doctor of the mind, of the brain, perhaps would understand that what really goes on in the mind. Maybe you're not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but being a neurologist, you would understand the emotions that get clogged up in the mind for someone to take such a drastic step.
For that, I would say that I think the world of today is terrifying. It is, everything is so much out there. Children's lives are not hidden anymore. They are not only being judged by their parents and their teachers, being judged by their peer group, because they are out there on social media, right? And now these are not just your friends who might possibly be a little kind to you, but they're also the whole, class of people out there who you don't know, a whole group of people out there, you don't even know them, but they can comment upon you. You are held up to a very different standard now, and I think it's an impossible standard. I want to say that, it has taken us a very long time in India to acknowledge something like depression. Now, depression is not just somebody feeling sad. It is a chemical, hormonal, uh, it could be a chemical hormonal balance. It is a mental disorder. It has to be dealt with by a doctor in the proper way, right? Uh, and it's easy for people to say, oh, itna pressure hai bachchon pe, to bachche ne koi suicide commit kar li, yeah, such and such incident happened, or there was something in that child's life that made that child, propelled that child towards it. But that's not correct. There is a thing called depression, and that depression is a very serious thing, and it has to be dealt with properly. You need to take your children to a doctor whenever you notice something like this. You need to take them for psychological counseling, for to a psychiatrist maybe. If needed, you need to get medication. As a mom, I missed out something huge in my life, and I am shocked that I missed it out. Uh, when my daughter was in college, the elder one, she called me up one day and she said that she'd attended a mental health seminar, and she said, "Mom, I've gone through it, and I have realized that I have ADHD." And I was like every other mother. I said, "नहीं, मेरी बेटी तो perfect है, तुम्हें कैसे हो सकता है? तुम तो बिल्कुल ठीक थी, तुम तो इतनी ये थी, वो थी." And growing up in the times that I did, mostly we associated it with hyperactivity, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Now, but she was right. She did have it. And in girls, ADHD becomes ADD. The hyperactivity, because of the social conditioning, becomes suppressed. Not only did she have it, my younger daughter also. So imagine it was my daughter who came and told me that I have this issue, and as a mother, I never recognized it. The school never recognized it. And the sad part is that we expect teachers in schools to be experts, but actually they're not.
They're not.
As a parent, we are also not. It's very important that we keep engaging with our children, that we keep we keep exploring their mind space and their emotions as much as they allow us to. See,
Absolutely.
privacy is a big issue. And I think privacy is one way, giving your child privacy is one way of showing your child the respect that the child needs to have as an individual, as a human being, as a person, right? But within that sphere of privacy, if you notice something is wrong, open the door to talking about it. And in case you are not able to talk to your child about it, or the child doesn't want to talk to you, it's absolutely fair. It doesn't mean you're a bad mom or that you're a bad dad. You take the child, then ask the child, point out to the child that this could be a problem, take the child to the professional who's able to deal with it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Before you go further, Payal, let me thank everyone who has joined us. We have quite a few people who are watching us right now, and there are a few comments also that have come. So let me read a few. Eli is saying that how many women would have the courage to throw away a flourishing career of a doctor just to look after their kid? So huge respect and kudos to you. Um, Eli is also saying that her lifelong regret as a mom is also hitting her child. I think, like I said, you know, more than the child, I think it is our own challenges, our own stress of whatever the reason may be. Perhaps the child is less at fault. The issue lies with us, which we are not able to internalize. We don't look within. That introspection doesn't happen, and perhaps when we do, you've already done the deed. And I do that very often. Every time I
भाई
scold her, or if there is.
भाई इट्स अ वेरी सिंपल थिंग. ये कोई ऐसे बहुत कॉम्प्लिकेटेड चीज नहीं है. What has happened? What has happened is that you as an adult have lost control. You've lost your temper.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah,
और
I
उसका
think it is
कारण
important
कुछ भी.
that Karan kuch bhi ho, and you have to review the situation so that you don't repeat it, and you have to work. So it is not only about working on the child. I think it is also about working on yourself, and that is only possible if there is acceptance. that yes, you have done something wrong, and as you said, that you've lost control. So Nanda Thate is also saying hitting is the most negative way of discipline. It breeds aggression in the child. Aparna is also saying the same. So Nanda is again saying that yes, we ourselves are not equipped to handle the myriad of emotions. So how do we really, groom our kids? Aparna is also remembering those days where one was hit with dusters and scales. Sorry. Sheetal is saying schools need more mentors at school and advocate for the children. Absolutely. I think, Sheetal has brought in a very important aspect. A lot of schools these days, sorry, have now started to work on a parent partnership concept. But does that really happen is a $1 million question. The PTMs that are there, and especially, over the last 2 years, being a mother of a small child or a child who goes to school, the pressure, forget on the child as a parent, is so much because you are seeing the competition right in front of you. A lot of parents have got impacted hugely because of that, and obviously, you then start questioning yourself that, am I doing the right thing? Is my child really capable to meet the external world? And I think that's where the pressure starts to build, the comparison starts to happen, and the
Can I give
whole parenting concept goes for a toss. Yes, please.
can I give you a very long distance perspective?
Sure.
क्योंकि अब मेरे बच्चे तो बड़े हो गए.
निकल गए हैं.
So मैं ये पूछना चाहूंगी that what does every parent want for their child? कभी किसी पेरेंट ने कहा है that I want my child to earn 3 lakh rupees a month. I want my child to drive an Audi. I want my child to have a house in Beverly Hills. I want my child to be dripping in diamonds from top to bottom. कोई पेरेंट ऐसे नहीं सोचता है. शायद कोई सोचते हैं. What you mentioned earlier about our own expectations being loaded on the kids, I think that's terrifying. I think we have to remember the words of Khalil Gibran, who said that we are the bow from which these arrows are shot. Those children are our arrows. They go in their direction. We must not ever load our expectations, our dreams and desires on them, because that is the surest way of actually choking and killing whatever the child is meant to be. उसकी अपनी लाइफ जर्नी है. थोड़ा सा 2 स्टेप पीछे लेके देखो. All you want your child is happiness. Happiness never comes from pressure. Happiness never comes from the rat race. And who are you comparing to? दुनिया में कोई ऐसा बच्चा नहीं है जिसकी माँ कह सकती है that my child has reached the acme. आप जब भी देखोगे ना, you will find somebody better than you. If your child has got 99.3, there will be somebody whose child has got 99.6. Right? If your child has got 80, there will be somebody whose child has got 83. So what are you pushing for? Why can we not teach our children to just try and do their best, whatever their best may be? My daughter, very bright girl, both of them very, very bright girls. Her math tutor told me if anybody can get 99%, it is her. She got some 63 or 67%. Why? Fear and failure of the at the point of test taking, because there was so much pressure. And we have to understand some children are not good test takers at all. These marks,
Absolutely.
first of all, are not an indication of either your intelligence or your ability. Unfortunately, this is the only Sarawa system that we have for measuring anything at all, right? How are you going to teach your child self-worth? By pushing them beyond their capability. And this is a very difficult thing for a parent, because as a parent, of course, you want them to do their best. You don't want to kind of loosen and ease off because that the child gets lazy and doesn't push herself or himself to the maximum that he can do. But at the same time, too much pressure can not only break the child, it can also break the relationship between you. It can induce a fear for life, not just for tests or exams, but also for things like the interview process going forward. for life
Could be
going
any
forward.
exam that you face of life also, why just
Or
the
any challenge. It need
schooling?
not even be an
Any
exam.
challenge.
Yeah. So you're actually setting your child up for failure when you put that kind of a pressure, because you're building that fear in them.
Absolutely. And when you spoke about the failure aspect, that I'm going to come back to that again, because in today's time, where the resources are available much more than what perhaps we had. Both you and I come from defense background. Our parents had limited resources. We were made to travel in buses which are not AC. We travel second class. We've stayed in hostel. We've learned to manage things in the minimal possible way. But today's parents, you know, uh, and this question is to Payal, the parent coach. Since you have taken these parenting sessions, a lot of parents are just trying to give abundance to the child, and this happens till they are in school, and then suddenly once they have done their college and whatever education they are let loose in the outer world. That's when reality hits them.
Yeah.
And I have seen a couple of kids who have turned around and told the parent that you didn't prepare me for this.
True.
And this has been more seen in the current, you look at the parents whose kids are maybe in the early 20s, or just about adult. Parents are not willing to accept that there is something which is amiss. What would you like to tell them? And then I'm going to get you back to your personal journey.
So ऐसा है कि वो that flight has taken off. You know, that flight has taken off from the day that you have started buying your children 17 pairs of shoes because oh, she looks so pretty in pink, oh, she has to have a red, why don't we get her a green, let's add a blue also to it, right? Now this is wish fulfillment that all parents do, and I think all parents will continue to do. Even our parents did it in our own way, right? The things that they could not have, they probably tried their best to provide from us. In a time that is so ruled by consumerism, a lot of the things that happen are a reflection of what we are doing in our own lives, right? हम अपने लिए भी तो 100 साड़ियाँ खरीद रहे हैं या 100 चप्पल खरीद रहे हैं, तो बच्चे के लिए तो फिर 200 ही खरीदेंगे, क्योंकि आफ्टर ऑल दिलो जान हमारे दिल का टुकड़ा है वो, और उसके लिए सभी कुछ होना चाहिए. That restraint works very well in life. That restraint works very well for everybody because it teaches us discipline. Uh, yes, when they get out into the world, perhaps these kids will have a challenge. But I also believe that they will surmount that challenge. अगर आपने कोई भी गलती कर दी है as a parent, I think a lot of times it is the children who do the course correction. When my daughter was living at home, she would take off her clothes and her jeans would just go down like that on the floor, and then they keep sitting over there. I never thought she could manage herself ever in life, but she did. She's the type of person who used to tell me, क्यों नहीं मैं ये टॉप खरीद सकती? It's only 7,000 rupees. वो 7,000 से मैं तो हिल जाती थी कि 7,000 की मैंने कभी साड़ी भी नहीं खरीदी है, 7,000 के इयररिंग्स भी नहीं खरीदे, ज्वेलरी भी नहीं खरीदी है, तो ये सिर्फ 7,000 का ये जंगी टाइप बनियान टाइप टॉप कैसे ओनली हो गया, you know? But my God, that girl grew up to be the most thrifty, the most capable, young woman managing her own budget. So life teaches you, and these children will course correct. Of that, I have no doubt. What course correction we have to do actually starts long before we even become parents. I think it starts with planning when you're going to have a baby, thinking about why you want to have a baby, what are your what are your goals for that child, what are your dreams and hopes for that child, what is your imperative for having that child, and really thinking about things like how are we building capability, what are we doing when we take this XYZ action. I've seen in our group, Sangeeta, a little one, छोटू सा, like 2.5 साल का little kiddie sits on the floor and peels butter with her. क्यों नहीं हमने किया? I can guarantee you that little boy is going to grow up to be a fantastic human being. So, course correction, we may not be able to do it. The children do it as and when they need to in life. But before or when our children are very young, if we really think about everything that we are doing, then perhaps we might not be too late to catch that flight.
True, but I think a lot of people say there's a interesting thing. Yeah, Sulanda is saying that we need a course on parenting, and unfortunately, I think most of these books that are come on parenting or these articles that you read, I think they completely fail. That they're good to read, uh, s- but I think what really works is your own experience, or talking to mothers who have had experience in the past. And as you said, when you were dealing with the older one, and then when the younger one came, there was a 5 year gap. You could do some kind of course correction there also. But for a
Yes.
lot of us like me who has a single child, you don't have that option to course correct. You keep correcting yourself, you keep making mistakes, you learn, and you kind of learn, unlearn, and you groom
Huh.
yourself. And and these parenting books or these articles that are there, every time I read them, I'm like, I'm already doing this, but there's nothing seem to be working. So let it be. Let me figure out my own ways. And I think that experiment that you do, sometimes it works, sometimes it backfires, but every child is unique. What works for one doesn't work for the other.
True.
Nina absolutely is there. Nina Wag, she's saying that parenting, the best way of parenting is to lead by examples. uh, Sheetal is saying it all starts from home, healthy relationship and zero societal pressures. That is true. But I think, a lot of us, I think, want an idealistic environment, which doesn't really happen. Also, Pyle, let's go back to our childhood days. We were given one or two here and there, or maybe more also. We were scolded, we were given those stares, that finger raise means, let's kind of just sit down, or even that one look was good enough for us. But what I see is that the generation that is coming is a very different generation altogether. Okay? Looking at them, staring at them, telling them, don't do, doesn't work. Right? They have a
Why?
mind of
Why
their
does it
own.
not?
Yeah, so that is
Okay.
exactly my question to you. Why?
Okay. I'm going to ask you this. We cannot measure their world by the experiences that we had when we were children. What is the kind of child that you want to bring up? In our times, the title of our thing today was Difficult Mother, Impossible Daughters, right? In our times, we did not want to bring up a difficult woman into the world. We did not even want to bring up a difficult child bolo, because even boys had similar kind of impositions on them. We expected them to fall within this box of that we called good behavior. And good behavior not only dictated their manners, unka utna, baithna, khana, peena, but also the kind of people that they were, right? This is the time of the individual. We want our children to grow up being free thinking, to be strong, capable individuals. So obviously we cannot expect both. We can't expect कि एक तरफ से तो है जो हम तुम्हें we will तुम्हें बांध के जकड़ के हम एक डब्बे में बैठाना चाहते हैं, और दूसरी तरफ से go soar and fly and you know reach the sky. The two things are actually opposite of each other. uh, that expectation is totally unreal. क्यों हम बच्चे को उंगली दिखाना चाहते हैं? क्यों हम उसको आंख दिखाना चाहते हैं? What is happening over there? Suppose it is behavior that we do not like, or that we cannot do not consider good. It has to be addressed at home in your alone time. What do we want? We want a perfectly behaved pretty little princess or prince in front of people. In front of people, if you're trying to do this form of disciplining, all you're trying to do is push down, oppress, suppress that child at that moment into fitting the model of behavior that you think society demands, right? And obviously, that individual of today is going to push back.
They have a mind. They have a reasoning. I think ability and capability. If we were
These are
born
these
with
are
this.
these are things that have to be addressed at home. I think there is a big difference between the way they bring up their children in the West and the way that we do. First of all, they take the trouble to explain things to children. They take the trouble to engage in a dialogue. They don't talk down to the child. They actually try and have a dialogue with the children. They also empower the children. I mean, आपने कभी देखा है किसी रेस्टोरेंट में when there is a group of people who may not be of Indian origin, even the littlest child who could be 3 years old is sitting with a menu, can't read the menu, but is sitting with a menu, and the mother is actually giving a child choices. This. What would you like to eat? What do? We tell our child what to eat. नहीं नहीं तुम ये you will not be able to eat this. This is too spicy, right? Then we never. How many times do we indulge in a dialogue with a child where we say that this is not a nice way to behave. This hurts me. This makes me feel bad. It shows you up in a bad light. You are better than this. You can do better. We can do better as parent and child. Where do we have that dialogue where we think that this little creature can actually be empowered to think for herself? And of course, there will be lapses. You mean that once you've had dialogues with your children or you started talking to them or explaining to them, they'll be all reasonable in this perfect model of behavior. जब हम नहीं है तो वो कहाँ से होंगे?
True. I think
अभी भी धोबी
the
अभी भी धोबी शर्ट जला के आता है तो हम चिल्ला देते हैं.
well, though, hey, that is true, and that's what they see. I think, as Nina Wag was also saying that they basically, you got to lead with by example. So they watch you silently, and I see this with Vanya. She'll keep looking at us that, okay, on what are we reacting? How are we reacting? And of course, I think for a lot of us who have these little ones, these 2 years have really played a, huge dent in the way these kids are now becoming, because all they saw was us. Sometimes you would be in a meeting, you may have a little bit of a harsh conversation with someone or anything, so they have got so used to being you rather than being themselves, and I think that has been a huge dampener on these kids.
Oh yes,
But yes, you're absolutely
the eyes have been on you 24/7. This has
absolutely
been
the
a
eyes have been on the
very
parent.
very challenging time for parents and very challenging time for children. I can't even imagine how you all have done it. So I would say hats off to all of you. Very very tough time.
True. And the point that you said, that when you allow a child to think, when you empower the child to take their decisions, I think that is something that I experienced when I was hosting kids of different age group, from as young as a 5-year old to a 21-year old.
Mm.
And asking them questions, not as a parent but as a mentor or as a person who's a talk show host, to try to bring out their thought process, giving them the space to
Ha,
actually think,
just
you know
engage
and
with them. We don't do
and
that.
engage
We
with them.
always talk down to the children. That is why in life it is very important to be able to step back a little bit. If we
Correct.
step and look at, for example, our spouse as a person, as a human being, as somebody who's got his or her own life journey, different from us, not my husband, not my wife, we'll probably know them better and we'll probably be better friends with them. In the same way, we step back from the children and stop constantly. Actually, we're not looking at them with our own lens. We think we love our children a lot, and we do, but we're not doing something that's very loving. We are not looking at them with our own lens. We are actually all the time looking at them with the lens of the world, with the lens of our friends.
Correct.
How are people going to judge her? How is the teacher going to judge her? What are our friends going to think of her? How many times do we say things to children that are without that shadow of judgment? You know, so we must empower our children. We must give them a voice in making decisions. And like you said, when there are issues, we must allow them the space to come up with their own solutions.
True. Absolutely. I think the moment you let them think, the moment you let them, like if I was telling you about the talk show, because they were minors, so I had to take parental consent. So every parent had this one question, ma'am, what would be the question that you would ask? I said, I'm not going to give you questions. I just want to talk to the child once so
Yeah,
that they are comfortable with me and they don't look at a new face altogether.
yeah.
And the kids were not keen to know what questions will they be asked. They were like, yeah, we are okay, we are confident. And actually, the way the current generation thinks, the kind of answers they give, I think a lot of parents had their jaws dropping. They were like, we didn't know this aspect of a child. We never thought that a child thinks like that. And I
Wow.
think that has given a lot of cues to me that fine, I may scold my daughter, or may tell her a couple of things because she's still too tiny to know what's, and because of these 2 years, we had to really guide her for everything. But many a times, we have conversations with her where we are trying, again, as you rightly said, to empower her, for her to make a choice. And the example that you gave in a restaurant, okay, this is what is available, what would you like to have?
Right.
We ask her every time we order
Right.
food from outside or we go out, we give her an option that, okay, this or this.
Right. And there's
And
nothing wrong. Nothing wrong with making suggestions. There's nothing wrong with saying
absolutely not.
this might be too much for you to finish, or this might be too spicy, and then let them decide.
Correct. Very true. Absolutely. I think that empowerment has to be there. And parents normally want their kids to learn ABCD and 1, 2, 3, 4, which means the focus is purely on scholastic. But when it comes to the other skill set, a lot of parents shy away. So, how was your experience with your girls? Were you a mother who was very focused on numbers? Or you were a mother who believed in a holistic approach and you worked upon certain life skills for the girls to be absolutely empowered that they are today? So, how
Okay.
was that part of your journey?
Okay. So first of all, I was as rotten as any other mother, and I was as wonderful as any other mother. कोई ज्यादा फन्ने खा नहीं थी मैं, कोई ज्यादा तोप नहीं थी मैं. जब मार्क्स पुअर होते थे तो मैं भी वरिड हो जाती थी. जब मार्क्स बहुत अच्छे थे तो मैं भी सेलिब्रेट करती थी और अवार्ड्स देती थी. However, luckily, as parents, my partner and I were completely on the same plane where we said, above everything else, we want you to do your best. We want you to try your hardest. But you know what? No matter how many times you tell your child that, pressure creeps in from all sides. When a teacher says, you could have got better marks, that trying your best immediately gets converted into how many marks you got, right? So we definitely wanted our children to do well, to be happy, to enjoy school, to use their brains, and also get the reward that every parent expects should be given to a child for having brains, which is that number called marks, right? uh, both my girls struggled immensely with exams. When they did their homework, when they submitted their assignments, whenever there was work that was to be done by them and taken to school, they would get excellent, amazing results. But when they took for exam, went for exams, the marks would drop. And I realized very soon that both girls had huge exam anxiety. I didn't recognize it in that many words, but I understood that exams caused them a lot of stress. So I tried my best not to talk about marks at all. But I did talk about hopes, dreams, and I would always say that look, you have to measure your hard work to what you want in life. If you want to drive a Lamborghini and live in a palace, then you have to study hard enough to get the topmost marks to get into the topmost college, which will lead into the topmost job. And if you're okay with, if you'd like to be a teacher and that's your primary interest, you don't have to work so hard. You want to be a social worker, you'd still have to work hard to get into college and study the profession, but maybe you don't have to work so hard. But I realize now that there was a fallacy in that, because it still sort of put the idea in their head that without getting marks, we will be nothing in life. Much later when my kids grew up, I did a couple of, I wrote a couple of articles and I wrote a couple of things about failure, especially addressed to those children who had failed. And I realized that actually failures are some of the most important things in life because we only learn from our failures. We never learn from our successes. And we have to somehow subvert this system of marks and how good or bad you are. The connection between the two has to be broken somehow as a parent. The moment we celebrate too much and we give a lot of praise to a child when the child gets good marks, and we kind of pull the child down and start moaning and crying when the marks are not so good, we are sending absolutely the wrong message and we're pulling them down. Today, especially, there are so many things kids can do. Like water, every child will find his place. Every child will achieve his dream. Because remember this, the first dreams or every dream that we dream might not be the dream that's meant for us. They will come to the dream that is meant for them and they will measure up to it and they will live it. I firmly believe this. So I won't say that I was a very perfect mom. I made my mistakes, but I hope I learned from them. The toughest part about parenting, क्या है? That it holds up a mirror to your face. और वो जो शीशे में दिखता है ना कभी कभी, it's very different from what you imagine yourself to be. And especially having daughters, grown up daughters, they hold that mirror up to your face very very often. They tell you ये ठीक किया, वो गलत किया. तो वो मार्क्स जो है ना फिर आपको मिलने लगते हैं, रिपोर्ट कार्ड
आपको
आपका
मिल-
बन जाता है.
Very true, absolutely. In fact, Payal, I remember I was a pretty good student all through my school, college, and my post grad, amongst always in merit. But unfortunately, my class 12th, which is like the defining time, was terrible. For whatever reason, I was unwell all throughout the year.
This is such a
But
horrible thing, Aikta, we do. Sorry for interrupting you. But we make this class 12, class 10, class 12, the board exams into such a big hawa that they hang
हुआ
ये तरह जो है ना हमारे बच्चों की खुशियां निगल जाते हैं.
बिल्कुल आप
Actually, the
बिल्कुल सही
fact
कह
is,
रहे हैं.
actually the fact is that in life nobody ever again asks you about your class 12 marks.
I don't
Suppose you
even
got
remember
bad
what I
marks.
got. Yeah.
Suppose you've got bad marks. Okay. Suppose you've gone to not a first rank, not a second rank, not even a third rank, maybe you've gone to a fourth rank college. Does that mean your life is at an end? No.
Absolutely
Because
not.
eventually you make your life, you make of yourself what you can, what you are capable of. You can, I have seen now, you are a working professional. You have also seen this, I'm sure. Children coming from cities whose names you've never heard of, whose colleges whom you've never even heard of again, right?
Excelling.
Children getting marks that were not so good. They have found their place. They are doing great things with themselves. India and a few other countries, we are still stuck in that time warp where we think marks are everything. Where we think
Correct.
that marks will make you, the college will make you, that class 12, oh my God, I wish we could abolish it.
Yeah, that is true. So when I got my result, and obviously the result wasn't what I was expecting or my parents were, it was bad because I was unwell. I had chicken pox in class 12. So, but my father celebrated. He said, doesn't matter, you know, one bad year doesn't mean that you don't celebrate this. And once I passed out my 12th, the only thing that my brother told me was that, look, whatever marks you scored doesn't matter. But what matters at what do you do of yourself now? Whether you
Hmm,
want to
so
go
important.
ahead or you want to sulk or you
Yeah.
just want to perhaps take admission in any of the colleges, do a basic graduation and walk the path of many who would not do anything in life just because your 12th has gone bad. The choice is yours. And I think that conversation has stayed with me and it has made me realize that what's done is done. What is important is what can I do now from
Yeah.
here on to achieve whatever I want to. Do I still have that power within me? And I think if as parents we understand that, have these kind of conversations, maybe our kids would be far better. They would be far better human beings, more empowered. We won't create robots where everybody is running after those 10th, 11th, 12th marks and that big hawa of board exam and the unnecessary that तलवार जो लड़की होती है आपके सर पे कि आप अब कटेगी तब कटे, साइंस नहीं मिला तो बहुत बड़ा इशू हो गया. आई थिंक दैट्स that whole concept is absolutely annoying. And I think now parents, schools are working towards the concept of education for life. We're all learning, we are still studying, each of us, right? If we are talking to each other, we are talking because we are reading something, we are experiencing something. So I think that is what is important. And you've brought out some very important aspects. There are so many comments that have gone. I'm just trying to see which ones should I read and which ones should I let go. Yeah, so Mr. Bhatnagar, Mukesh Bhatnagar, she's saying that is our education system suffers from a fundamental flaw. Why it is marks oriented? Of course, I think it's a huge flaw because that's how we are. It's like, what's your rank? That's what matters. I remember when I did when I took my entrance exam during my post grad, my brother got through CAT. My
Mm,
score in CAT was not that high to get the IIMs. He got through,
mm,
and my mom said that you want to take a drop and prepare for 1 year. So all I told her at that time was that no, I will not take a drop.
mm.
I may not have gotten into the best institute, all the IIMs, but that much I can assure you that wherever I am, I will excel and I'll do better than what I have done. That much
And
of confidence I have. And I
yeah,
think
you
that
know,
is something that as
but so
parents
that
we believe
yeah, absolutely. Like if
that you have
even
to
if the whole
empower.
school system is oriented towards marks, why are we forgetting that this is the only childhood that our children have? Why are we not making a time of joy? You know, yes, it is important to teach your children that very, 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 very fundamental lesson that in life always do your best. But why are we making love about marks? This is a hump that we have to cross. We have to show them that you matter to us no matter what. We value who you are and what you are. इसका मतलब क्या कि कोई बच्चा जो पढ़ाई में अच्छा नहीं है उसको पेरेंट्स क्या बिल्कुल प्यार ना करें? How ridiculous that sounds, right? But
Yes.
we do it. हम खुद ही ऐसा कर जाते हैं.
I
Does
think
my
we need to
voice?
understand what the child really, what is the potential the child has. We need to help the child harness their potential,
Yeah,
guide them in such a manner that they're able to figure out where their strength lies, what are their weaknesses that they can work upon. And
yes,
the competition is with no one else, it's with your own self. It's
yes,
like very simple. When we write poetry, we all of us have been writing poetry these days. Can I write better than what I wrote last time? But I can
exactly.
only do that if I have read, if I have worked upon my vocabulary, if I have tried to understand the word, the prompt, the concept, or anything. This is what we need to do with our kids. But
Yeah.
I guess the baggage, the legacy that each of us carries is something that high time we need to, let go of. So, Payal, I want to ask you this question. You started off in the beginning that one of the biggest regret that you've had is that you were very strict. You were, with your older ones, especially, and that's where the difficult mom
Let
and
me
the
correct.
impossible.
Let me correct you. In hindsight, today I say I wasn't being strict. I was being abusive.
Thank you for acknowledging that. And it takes a lot to accept our mistakes, and I'm also learning to do that. Any other regret as a parent that you
No,
have while you were growing up your girls?
no. When I was a young woman, I used to hear very often from people, mostly men, that you're a very difficult person. यार तुम तो बिल्कुल कॉम्प्रोमाइज नहीं करती हो. यू नो तुम तो बस इक्वालिटी का झंडा गाड़ के बैठी हुई हो. एंड आई यूज टू ऑलवेज से क्यों? यू हैव अ किडनी, आई हैव अ किडनी. यू हैव अ हार्ट, आई हैव अ हार्ट. यू हैव अ लिवर, आई हैव अ लिवर. अदर देन द सेक्स ऑर्गन्स देयर इज नो डिफरेंस बिटवीन अस. क्या एक औरत की किडनी एक आदमी की किडनी से अलग काम करती है? तो क्यों तुम्हें लगता है कि एक औरत की दिमाग एक आदमी से अलग काम करता है? I have a soul, you have a soul. Why should a woman ever be treated as inferior in society? So I gained this reputation of being a very difficult woman, right? And मैंने तो फिर ये सोच लिया कि अगर if I'm lucky enough to have daughters, I don't want them to be difficult. I want them to be impossible. So I have impossible daughters. I have no other regrets. I tried very hard to make my daughters never live in fear. I wanted them to be their own people, and they are perfect them. स्पेशली व्हेन यू हैव डॉटर्स, हम उनको ये लेसन देते हैं कि बच के रहो, डर के रहो, संभल के रहो, आंखें नीचे कर लो. आई टोल्ड माई डॉटर्स, आंखें नीचे मत कर, लड़ो, खुद को भी बचाओ, किसी और को भी बचाओ. You are no less. Claim your space in this world. And if you can make life impossible for somebody who is living in another century and who looks at women differently, all the better.
Wonderful, excellent. That's wonderful. Actually, yes. I think if we all prepare our kids not for the
And it's
good
not,
times, because that they will, do
yeah,
it. But if you prepare them for the most challenging times in their life, uh, I think we are actually doing our job, if I may say so. In the right manner, teaching them those life skills. Scholastic will happen, I think. It's just a question whether it is 90, 80, 70. I think it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I'm sure a lot of people who are professionals, who are watching us, who will watch this later, will realize whatever we studied in school and college, we hardly used anything of that.
very small part of our lives.
Very,
ये
very
तो
small
सिर्फ
part. And
ये तो
you
सिर्फ
barely use any of these concepts.
और ये तो सिर्फ रोटी कमाने के लिए है. जीने के लिए क्या
Exactly.
स्किल्स चाहिए? जीने के
वो
लिए
नहीं
क्या
हम
स्किल्स
करते.
चाहिए?
We
वही.
don't do that.
Yeah.
We all, most of the parents are only preparing their child कि बेटा बड़े होके तुम अपनी नौकरी कर लो या अपना काम कर लो.
Yeah.
उसके
Yeah.
अलावा तुम्हारी लाइफ में क्या होता है, आई यू नो आई रियली वंडर व्हाई पेरेंट्स डोंट वर्क ऑन इट. Scholastic will happen. I think it is important to work on the life skills. And as a as my main line of work, being a financial mentor, which is one of the very important life skills,
Absolutely.
parents don't even talk to their kids about it. And
स्कूल में ऐसा कुछ नहीं सिखाया जाता.
कुछ
My
नहीं होता.
daughter was telling me the other day. Now, even the younger one is earning for herself, and she was telling me. She said, "Mama, they never taught us how to go to a bank. Today one doesn't need it, but still, they never taught us how to fill a check and withdraw money. They never taught us, that there is something called a share market, that their stocks and shares, mutual funds. They never taught us how to save our money or invest our money. ये सब important life skills क्यों नहीं सिखाई जाती?
नहीं
Maybe
सिखाई
it's a
जाती.
parent's job to do it.
Well, it's
But कुछ
then
नहीं
where does the
करती.
parent partnership go? And this is something I have spoken to a couple of schools, but there wasn't a positive response for this, or
हाँ,
perhaps a more a dilly darling kind. One school about whom I read, who actually conducted a session for the older kids,
हाँ.
and I was so happy, and I want my child to go to the school, and fortunate enough she is joined the same school, and I hope they continue to
Super,
do that,
super.
for all the kids. Because if we don't teach our kids these life skills at a very young age, I think we are being unfair to them. We are not doing what we are supposed to do. We don't have to just teach them, we don't have to just make them learn how to earn money. We have to make them learn how to live a life which is beyond just earning, life which is beyond numbers. What about value system, what about relationships, what about failures, the acceptance of failure. If you fail, I feel, and this is my favorite, I think you fail, it's forward action, inward learning. If I take it from my profession, it's being financially aware in life. So
True.
please fail, please fail. It is of utmost importance to fail. Let the
Yeah.
child fall, it's okay. आई कीप टेलिंग माई डॉटर, बेटा कोई बात नहीं, गिरते हैं तो ही बड़े होते हैं, चोट लगती है तो ही बड़े होते हैं. आप, एंड आई मीन, अभी शायद उसको फिजिकल चोट लगती होगी क्योंकि वो छोटी है, बट एज शी ग्रोज इन लाइफ, there'll be emotional hurt, there'll be lot of challenges that she's going to come across. We all need to prepare. So I thank you for bringing out these aspects without having to ask many questions. You have shared a lot about you as a mother, and I wouldn't say that you were a difficult mother. I think you were preparing the girls in the right direction.
No,
And
no.
that is why today,
I was a difficult woman.
Sorry. Okay, difficult woman, which you still are. You have your own mindset, and that is why I think perhaps anyone who has a mind of their own is considered to be slightly difficult, because you don't take any answer just because the answer has to be given. And bringing out these important aspects of the motherhood journey and saying it the way it is commendable. To accept that you quit your job, you restarted yourself, from being a doctor to now being a curator for handloom and handcrafted jewelry, making your girls reach a point where they are today, to having acknowledged when they told you that they had ADHD, which you missed out. I think that speaks volume about you as a parent, for both yourself and for Mr. Talreja, because most of the time we parents are in denial that this cannot happen to a child, which was your initial reaction also. But the acceptance perhaps gave the girls more power, that it's fine if we have these challenge. I think what is important is how we work on these challenges. And I remember, I think it was the second talk show that I had hosted, where Ela had also shared about a challenge that her daughter had faced, which was OCD, and she also acknowledged that had I not accepted it, that challenge was there with her daughter, perhaps I would have never been able to nip it in the bud. So
True.
as parents, let's accept, let's acknowledge the flaws that we have, the flaws that are there in our kids, work to the strength, work on the weakness, and empower them to take their decisions. And of course, let's not spank, let's not be looking down on them, let's not demean them. And I'm sure all of us are work in progress, we're all learning at whatever age as a parent we are. We all have our regrets, we all have our high points. So let's be work in progress forever. I guess that's what is life. Let's not be a straight line,
True.
which means we are gone. So let's not be that. We want to be like, let's have a roller coaster life, to enjoy it. And wonderful, Pile, thank you so much. But as a ritual, before I let you go, I still would want to get that one piece of advice from Payal Talreja, the mom, to all the parents who would watch later or who are watching us now, at whichever age they are, because I think parenting is parenting. It is not, specific to an age. Even a grandparent is still parenting. So, what would be your piece of advice?
Ekta, before I come to that, I just want to say that it is in the nature of a human being to be flawed. वो फ्लॉज नहीं होते तो हमारी लाइफ की जर्नी ओवर हो जाती और हम एक स्पिरिचुअल लेवल तक पहुंच जाते, जो कि हमें एक्चुअली धीरे धीरे चल के जाना है. The only advice I would give is this, that uh, it is not your child's duty or responsibility to make you happy. It is your child's duty and responsibility to make himself or herself happy.
Wonderful. Beautifully said and absolutely correct. And if we all are able to take that responsibility for our own self, and I think that also comes from the fact that we all need to love ourselves. Only then can we be happy. So
Yes.
I think a message which is not just for kids or for parents, but for each one of us. खुद से प्यार कीजिए. It's okay to be a narcissist. I love being one, and I love myself, and I say it openly. And why shouldn't I? Because if I can't love myself, I don't think I can love anybody else. That will be a pretense. सो वंडरफुल, थैंक यू. एंड जाते जाते एक कमेंट पढ़ देती हूँ. रश्मि जी कह रही है कि बच्चों से ज्यादा पेरेंट्स को फेलियर एक्सेप्ट करनी होती है. बिल्कुल सही कहा रश्मि जी आपने, एब्सोल्युटली राइट. एंड lot of comments, Payal. I'm sure you would want to visit the group and read so many comments that have come, and with such an engrossing conversation, there are many that have gone up. I'll still, before we say bye bye, let me see if I can read out a few. I think sometimes our kids teach us something very subtly. They share, empathize, and manage friendships so beautifully. There's a
Definitely
comment that,
not.
yeah, Mr. Bhatnagar is sharing that he wishes to share that both his children went to the same school. One opted for PCB, the other went into arts. One is a doctor, but the other one is earning more than the elder one just because he developed presentation skills that had nothing to do with his report card. And there is a
They'll
need
find,
to groom the child
yeah,
in his or
they'll
her
find it.
field of interest. So I think we've all understood. It's time that we internalize it and see what mistakes we are making, because each of us does make that mistake. So it is okay to be a difficult mom or a difficult woman in order to create impossible kids. So thank you, Payal, for being here at the Motherhood Club talk show from the entire team of Motherhood. And keep sharing your thoughts, keep sharing your parenting lessons. I'm sure a lot of us would benefit. I did many a time when I would have challenges with my little one, and these challenges don't go away so easily. But let's be at it and learn from each other. So, thank you once again for being here. And ladies and gentlemen, stay safe. Don't forget to wear your mask. It's in our own interest to protect ourselves, even though it's not mandatory anymore. And I invite you all tomorrow at 6 p.m. at the Motherhood Club for a session on financial awareness. And I hope I get to see some of you, where we will be
Absolutely.
talking about things that we need to do in the beginning of the financial year. So, see you all tomorrow at 6 p.m. Till then, take care. Signing off, this is Ekta Sehgal Malhotra, founder and chief strategy officer, Motherhood Club. See you, bye bye, and take care. Thank you, Payal,
Thank
once
you.
again.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Ekta. Lovely being here.
Pleasure is all ours. Thank you.